Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Gareth here from tastytudes.com. In the previous video, I demonstrated how to manage complexity and work smart in Adobe Photoshop. In the last video, we brought a series of creative elements together to form the heading for our book cover design, and then placed that entire composition into the main book cover as a smart object. Now, if we look at the finished design, we have these three paper bird characters. For this tutorial, we are going to create the bird character you see here. I'll be demonstrating the tools and techniques I use to make this. Later, I will then place this into the main book cover document in the same way we placed in the header graphic as a smart object in the previous video. Now, if you would like to take a closer look at this example and the other two bird examples that feature in the book cover, you can find them in the final artwork folder, in the project folder. Now, should you be new to this course, you can download the project folder for free. The download link is in the description. Now, we're going to be covering a lot in this video and in quite some depth. If you wish to skip ahead to any point in the video or back, you can do so quite simply. The topics covered in this video are listed in the description and in the downloadable PDF, along with their times, so be sure to check that out. So let's get into it and create our origami bird character. So I'm going to navigate to the project folder. With the project folder open, I'll come into the create a project folder. I'll open the assets folder, and then I'll open the paper birds folder. And in here, we can see two images, paper bird 1 and paper bird 2. So I'll begin by opening up paper bird 1. So this is a photo of a paper origami bird that has been taken previously. What we are going to do here is decorate this blank paper bird to add some character. So if we look in the layers panel, we can see that this is a simple flat image including no layers. So before I start to add color, I'm going to prep the image so it will be ready to bring into the book cover design, cut away from the solid white background here. So first, I'll come into the layers panel and double click on the single layer, which is currently called background with a lock on it. In the new layer window, I'll name this layer white base and click OK. So next, I'm going to cut the bird out from the white background from the photo layer. Now on this occasion, the bird is quite rigid and angular. So to do this, I'll use the polygonal lasso tool. So I'll come into the menu, select the polygonal lasso tool, I'll zoom in and start to click around the bird like so. Now I'm currently zoomed in quite close, so I'll press and hold spacebar and click and drag to maneuver around the canvas area to reveal more of the image to click around with the polygonal lasso tool. Soon I'll have a selection around the paper bird. Now on this occasion, I'm going to leave out the shadow below the bird. Next, I'll press Command X to cut. On this occasion, I have chosen to cut instead of copy. Now, I have done this as I want to separate the bird from the shadow. Once cut, I'll press and hold Shift and Command and press V. This will paste into place in the exact same position from which it was cut from the photo layer. Great. So now we have the bird on a separate raster layer in the layers panel. So I'll come into the layers panel, double click on the layer name and call this bird cutout. Next, I will do the same for the shadow. With the lasso tool, I'll draw a selection around the shadow. Now this does not have to be perfect. In this instance, it's a rather crude selection. But that's okay for now, and you will see later why this will do. So I'll make sure I have the white base layer selected. I'll press Command X to cut, and press and hold Shift and Command, and press V to paste in place. In the Layers panel, I'll double click on the name and I'll call this Shadow. So now in the Layers panel, we have two new raster layers, the cutout paper bird and the shadow. So now I'm going to start to add some colour and texture to the character. So I'll come back to the project folder and back into the assets folder and open the textures folder. Now, texture 2 to 4 are the textures I'm going to use for the three bird character examples. On this occasion, I'll open texture 2. With the texture open, I now want to get this into the paper bird document. So I'll press Command A to select all, I'll press Command C to copy. I'll then press Command W to close the document, as we no longer need it open. And now we are back with the paperbird image. So I'll press Command V to paste, and now I have the texture in the document on a new layer. So I'll make sure to rename this layer to texture and drag it up so it's on top of my layer structure. Great. So next I'll toggle the visibility of this new texture layer and zoom in. Now I want this texture to appear like it's printed on this middle section of the bird here on the wing. So I'll come into the menu and select the polygonal lasso tool. Now like earlier, I'll zoom in and make a selection in the area I want the texture to be in. So now I have the selection of the middle area like so. I'll toggle the visibility of the texture back in. Next, I'll make sure I have the texture layer selected in the layers panel. Then I'll come to the bottom of the layers panel and click the Add Layer Mask button, third from the left. Upon click, we will now apply a mask to the texture from the selection. Nice. So that's a quick way to apply a mask. Now, the texture is looking a little big inside that area. I now want to toggle the scale of the texture so I can see more of it. So I'll come back into the layers panel and pay close attention to the texture layer. So now we have the familiar layer mask thumbnail added, but notice between the mask thumbnail and the image thumbnail we have this lock symbol. This is to lock the mask to the image. For example, if I wish to move the texture around with the move tool, we can see the mask following the image. I'll press Command Z to undo that. Now if I click on the lock with the mouse cursor, notice it will now disappear. This means that the mask is no longer locked to the image it's applied to. So now if I click on the image thumbnail, with the move tool activated, I can click in the canvas area and move the image around inside the mask. I can even press Command T to activate free transform and scale the image down inside the mask and rotate. So I'll scale the image inside the mask down slightly, rotate and press enter to commit. Great. So now we have the texture nicely over the area. But now there is a slight problem. If I zoom in here and toggle the visibility of the texture layer, we can see all the subtle shadows of the paper that give it its 3D realistic feel. When I toggle the texture back in, it's now covering all this up. So now I'm going to use a blending mode to blend this texture to the paper bird below. So with the texture layer selected, I'll come up to the top left of the layers panel. I'll click the blending mode options and select multiply. Upon click, we can now see the texture blend with the paper bird, and that's looking a lot more convincing. So now I'm going to add colour to the rest of the bird using the same technique. So I'll select the polygonal lasso tool from the menu. I'll carefully draw a selection around the head part of the paper bird, keeping as close to the edge of the photo as possible. This time, once I have the selection, I'll now press Command-Shift-N to create a new layer. I'll call this red, then press I to activate the Eyedropper tool. I'll make a colour selection from the texture. I'll choose a reddish colour. Then I'll come into the menu, select the Paint Bucket tool and fill the selection with the red colour. Once filled, I'll press Command-D to deselect the selection. So with the red layer selected in the layers panel, I'll come up to the top of the layers panel, click on the blending mode and choose multiply again. Upon click, it will blend the solid red colour nicely to the paper bird below. Through the colour, we can see the shadows from the paper texture, and that's looking a lot more convincing. So now I'm going to use the same technique to colour the rest of the bird. This time, with the polygonal lasso tool, I'll make a selection under the wing. Now, I'm going to colour this section with the same red on the same layer. So on this occasion, I don't need to make a new layer here. I'll just click into the selection with the Paint Bucket tool. Because the layer has the blending mode multiply already assigned, we can see the shadows through the colour. Perfect. So next, I'll make a selection of the wing. With the Eyedropper tool, this time I'll select a blue colour. I'll press Command-Shift-N to create a new layer. And with the Paint Bucket tool, I'll fill the selection in blue. I'll name this layer blue and apply a blending mode of multiply, easy. So I'll continue around the bird. I'll make new selections of the tail, feet and beak. I'll make new layers for each colour. I'll fill accordingly with new colours. I'll name the layers and apply the blending mode multiply to each. Soon I'll have something that looks like this. The bird nicely coloured in with the texture on the wings. Great. So I'll come into the layers panel, select all the colour layers and the texture layer. With them selected, I'll press Command G to put them into a single layer folder and name the folder colour. So now I'm going to add the last detail to the bird, the eye section. So back in the assets folder, I'll now open the bird eye sketch. So here on the left, you can see a sketch I have drawn previously and scanned in. And on the right, you can see the shape layers I have made by tracing the sketch. In the layers panel, we can see all the shape layers that make up the eye section, and they are all placed in this layer group folder called eye. Now I have created this previously using the shape tools and the pen tool to draw the custom shape at the base here. If I come into the tools menu and select the path selection tool, by clicking on a particular shape layer, I can come up into the control panel and change the colours. So if you use this asset and wish to experiment with new colours, simply select the layers with the path selection tool and change the fill colour up in the control panel. So now I'm going to select the eye folder in the layers panel. I'll press V to activate the move tool and I'll drag it into my bird document like so. I'll move it over and above the colour folder in the layers panel, and I'll position it on the head section of the bird like so. On this occasion, I'll press Command T to rotate it, to align it with the head section, and press Enter to commit. Perfect. So once I am finished with the first bird character, I'll press Command S to save. Now this document originally started off as a single layer JPEG. This document now contains multiple layers, so upon pressing Command S to save, I am now going to have to save this as a PSD document. So I'll navigate into my project folder and save it inside as Paper Bird 1 and click OK. Once saved, I'll close the document and come back to my main book cover design I prepared in the last episode. So now I'm going to add the bird character I just created into this document. So using the same technique as demonstrated in the previous video, I'll come up to File and select Place Embedded. Now if you're using an older version of Photoshop, this will be referred to as just Place and not Placed Embedded. So I'll navigate to my project folder and select the Paper Bird 1 and click Place. Upon click, we can now see the bird like so. In this instance, I'll just press Enter, and this creative element now exists in this document as a smart object. Okay, so now we can currently see our bird, but it has a white background. So I'll come into the Layers panel and double click on the Smart Object thumbnail. Upon click, the Smart Object will open in a new tab, and here we can toggle the visibility of the white background like so. Notice we can now see the crude shadow cutout we made earlier. For now, I'll just press Command W to close and save the document. Back in the main document, we can now see the bird has the transparency around it, and we can see the background of the main document. Though now we can see the crude cutout of the shadow. What I want to do next is blend the shadow into the background, just like I did with the colours on the texture layer of the paper bird. The problem now, however, is that we have this entire bird as a smart object. If I was to come and apply a blending mode of multiply to this smart object, the shadow is looking just fine, but the bird is now looking odd against the blue. So I'll press Command Z to undo that. So this time, I'll come back into the Layers panel, double click on the smart object. When the smart object opens, I'll come and select the shadow layer. I'll press Command A to select all and Command C to copy. So I've just copied the contents of the shadow layer. Now I'll toggle the visibility of the shadow layer to off, press Command W to close the document and save. So back in the main document, we have the bird with no shadow below, set on a transparent background. Next, I'll press Command V to paste. So now I have just pasted in the shadow section. And now we can clearly see the area cut out around it. Perfect. So at the top of the layers panel, I'll add a blending mode to this new layer of multiply. Next, I'll press Command T to activate free transform and scale this down and place it carefully under the bird, like so. Once happy, I'll move the new layer under the bird layer in the layers panel and call this layer shadow. I'll select the top layer, press and hold Shift and select the shadow layer. With them both selected, I'll press Command G to group them together, and I'll call this folder Paper Bird 1. That will now give me the flexibility to move the bird and the shadow around as one. So the main bird is a smart object, though we had to bring in the shadow separately to apply the blending mode. Excellent. So now it's time to create the next Paper Bird character. Now, if you're interested to have a go at this, you can simply come back into the Assets folder, open the Paper Bird folder and open the Paper Bird 2 document. Here we have a new origami bird photo ready to be coloured. If you would like to have a go at this, I suggest you pause this video and do this now. Though if you wish to follow along, you can use an example I have prepared earlier. So back in the main document, I'll come again to File and click Place Embedded. Now, if you have just created your Paper Bird 2, then navigate to your project folder and find it. Though if you're just following along, navigate to the Finished Artwork folder and select Paper Bird 2. Once the bird appears in the document, I'll just press Enter. So now we have the second bird in the document, and we can see again we have the white background. In the Layers panel, I'll double click on the Smart Object thumbnail. In the Smart Object tab, I'll toggle the visibility of the white base layer. I'll select the shadow layer, press Command A to select all, press Command C to copy, and toggle the visibility of the shadow layer to off. I'll press Command W to close the document and save. Back in the main document, we now have the bird set on a transparent background. On this occasion, I'll toggle the visibility of the bird 1 so I can see what I'm doing here. I'll press Command V to paste in the shadow. In the Layers panel, I'll name this layer to Shadow and apply a blending mode of Multiply. I'll press Command T to activate Free Transform and scale it down to fit under the bird's feet, like so. I'll select both layers in the Layers panel and place them into their own group and name it Bird 2. With the Bird 2 group folder selected, I'll press Command T to activate Free Transform and scale the whole bird down a little and move across to the left away from Bird 1. Now if we take a look at the finished design, we can see we have this grass paper image coming in from the bottom. So back in the Assets folder, we have a file here called grass. I'll open it in Photoshop. So here we have a sample of grass paper with some spikes on top, and we can see this is set on a transparent background. This has been cut out previously. So I'll press Command A to select all, Command C to copy, then Command W to close the document. Back in the main document, I'll press Command V to paste in the new grass object. I'll drag it towards the bottom of the canvas area, leaving some space for the type that we will place in later. So now this grass gives me boundaries between the header and the grass, to which I now have to place my bird characters. So next I'll place in my last bird character. I'll come to File, Place Embedded. I'll navigate to the Final Artwork folder, select Paper Bird 3 and Place. So just like earlier, I'll double click on the Smart Object, toggle the visibility of the white base layer. I'll copy the shadow layer, toggle the visibility of the shadow layer, close and save. Back in the main comp, I'll toggle the visibility of bird 1 and 2 and press Command V to paste in the new shadow. I'll apply a blending mode of Multiply, scale the shadow down to sit under the bird image. I'll group the two new layers together and name the folder Bird 3. Now in the Layers panel, I'll select all three birds and press Command G to group these three birds into a new folder and call it Birds. This gives me the flexibility to move all three around together and also scale them down together should I wish. So now I'm going to spend some time to carefully position my 3 birds between the header and the grass. I can select them individually and scale them down or up accordingly. I'll press Command : to activate the guides, and I'll be sure not to place the birds too much over the inner margins, so as to maintain some nice space around the artwork. For bird 3, I'll select the folder group, come up to Edit, Transform and Flip Horizontal. So now I have a nice interesting composition of the birds here. So after a little work and consideration, I will have something that looks like this. The paper bird characters nicely positioned and my grass at the bottom. So once I'm happy with the positioning of my birds, I'll come into the Layers panel, right click on the birds folder and assign a blue colour. I'll double click on the grass layer and name this grass. And finally press Command S to save. So by using the blending mode multiply, we were able to decorate a paper bird photo to make it look like the colours and textures were actually printed onto the paper. By cutting the various elements out, we were able to create transparency, which made the artwork flexible when placed into a larger composition. Once saved as an individual document, we were then able to bring them into a new document as smart objects. This enables us to manage a larger composition of complex creative elements in a simple and smart way. So now we are making good progress on the book cover design. If we look at the final design, we can see at the top we have the book publisher logo. In the next video, we are going to learn how to create this logo using the shape builder tools. See you in the next video.